Hello and welcome to tonight's edition of The Probe. In the next 60 minutes, it's a post-mortem of recent happenings in Parliament. I bet you're aware of it by now. Well, the NDC as a party was hopeful that their side in Parliament will outrightly reject some 6 ministerial nominees appointed by President Akufo-Addo, as well as some justices of the Supreme Court, 2 of them. But it turns out that up to 31 of them, in an instance, when it comes to Brian Champon, for instance, all defied the party and voted for, that's a yes, for the ministers. And this has not gone down well with the party. A number of adjectives have been used to describe these MPs, amongst others that they are treacherous, traitors, amongst others, a betrayer, amongst others. A list is out going on those who did not betray the cause. We'll take a look at that. But also, there are concerns about whether this particular parliament, a hung parliament, is it a blessing or a curse to us as a country? That and more we're taking a look at tonight here on The Probe. I introduce my guests to you when I return, but of course I have with me in the studios already Dr. Rashid Rahman. He's with the Institute of Parliamentary Affairs, ASEPA, and he joins me. Also via Zoom, Dr. Kwame Asasante. He's a political scientist with the University of Ghana. He joins me also via Zoom. And then we'll have the communications officer of the NDC, Sami Jemfi, also joining us at some point. We'll also have Jifa Gumashi, the Ketu South MP. She's been named as one of the MPs that did not betray the cause. She'll also join us for how she did it. We'll be joining her via Zoom as well. And Franklin Kujo, Imani Africa, will join us also at some point here on The Probe. It's a packed show and it's a post-mortem of all that has been happening in Parliament in recent times. You ought to stay here. This is a Joy News channel. We're also live on Joy 99.7 FM for our radio audience. On DSTV, we're on channel 421. On Go TV, it's 144. We're on all our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and also on YouTube. Do join us with your thoughts and comments as well. This is The Probe. I am Emefa Apawu. A quick turnaround, then we get talking. Please do stay with us.
Them are relatives, but it's not about them. And I call on you that look them in their face, vote against them for the Republic of Ghana, for the of our country. Mr. Speaker, this will not be a vote by the minority alone. We are sending a signal to the national community. We are sending a signal to the Ghanaian taxpayer that we care. We are sending a signal to everyone that we in the NDC, we care. Join us and let's reject them. And college you, please reject the appointment. Reject the appointment in the name of Ghana. Because Ghanaians are watching us. The situation isn't good. Our economy is in bad shape, a very bad shape. It's calls on all of us to sacrifice. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we are ready. We are ready to fight. And we are calling on them to join on us to sacrifice by rejecting the nominees and to send a signal to the president that, Mr. Speaker, we are ready to act. Mr. Speaker, it is sad. It is sad. It is clearly sad because, Mr. Speaker, it looks like the government of the day doesn't seem to care and doesn't seem to pay attention to public opinion. Doesn't seem to pay attention to public opinion. Public opinion is clear on this matter.
What we're asking of them is not just something that party leadership is asking. It's actually something that the nation is demanding. We're talking about millions of Ghanaians expect that. Even foreign government can see it and asking that it be done. How much more us? Now, so if there are any MPs, and I know, having been an MP myself, I do know. I mean, in the House, you have what you call friendships. And what I want to, again, signal is us. The position that we are taking is not a position that is against any individuals. Some of those who are being, what you call, appointed, nominated, are friends of mine. But this position, a position for Ghana, we are saying that it is simply not right in the midst of this crisis to allow this government to continue keeping the size of the government that they do. The day the president decides that, it is true. It's not only the NDC that's calling for it, the people of Ghana are calling for it, even foreign government are calling for it. Let me do something about the size of government. They can renominate, and some of those same individuals will have no issue. We have no problem with them as individuals. The problem we have is a principal position. In that principal position, we believe that our MPs are conscious that the burden they carry is not a burden that they are just carrying on behalf of the NDC, but much more. They are carrying that burden on behalf of the millions of Ghanaians who expect that something be done. But we are talking about the president, his vice, and the government. We just don't care. That's their attitude. We don't care. The country can go to anywhere. We are going to do what we've got to do. The boys must have jobs. The girls must have jobs. Let the whole country go through a haircut. We were not going to allow for any haircut as far as our governance is concerned. So that actually should be a cause for concern.
So I think, have you instructed them to stay in the House and vote against it, or they should leave? Because many said this is a secret ballot, remember?
To vote against it.
So they should stay.
Apps to vote against.
But remember, it's a secret ballot.
Yes, we know.
I'm going in addition to that.
We know that.
It's a secret ballot.
Sure, we know.
But you don't have the power. You know who. And these MPP learned that on the 7th of January 2021. That can prove disastrous for you.
We are aware. We've taken all that into consideration.
So what are you doing?
We are going to ensure that they do exactly as the people of Ghana expect of them to do.
When it's a secret ballot.
What the millions of Ghanaians expect of them to do. To understand that this is nothing personal.
You have a lot of faith. You have a lot of faith in your 136 members of parliament.
Yes, because I do understand. I do feel that they appreciate what is going on in this country, the gravity of the situation, and the cause, not just from NDC, but from the
Do you understand the consequence from the party if they break ranks and possibly someone votes and you may not even know the person? Do you understand? Have you told them what is the consequence?
How do you know we may not know?
Well, MPP hasn't found out the person who voted for Abambagbeng still. So I guess that's why I'm believing that you may not know.
I tell you that we will put mechanisms in place to be able to know.
Fortunately, the MPP seems panicking. They are afraid of their own shadows, and they are trying to run away from the vote. We insist on secret balloting, and we will vote accordingly. We are optimistic because we strongly believe the NDC minority caucus will not betray the stance of the party and the stance that the people of Ghana have come together to ask us to actually implement. So we are urging our colleagues on the majority side to come to the chamber now so that we can start the voting. We want the voting today and not any other day. It should be done today, Friday, 24th of March 2023, and not any other day. We want to move on, and I believe that the people of Ghana will get the decision that is required.
This is The Probe. You're welcome back, and I'm sure you've been hearing some of the sounds just before that particular vote that has got the party, also the flag bearer hopeful John Dramani Mahama, all disappointed. We've been hearing from some MPs as well, and also I've been monitoring the status, for instance, of the social media pages of the General Secretary of the party, Fifi Kwete, and a number of names have been put out so far for not betraying the cause. All that and more we are taking a look at tonight. A hung parliament, a blessing or a curse to this country, because people were hopeful that this will be a blessing. But it turns out, some say, it's become a curse. But these and more we are taking a look at tonight. Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs, is my guest in the studio. Also on Zoom, we have Dr. Asa Sante, Political Scientist, University of Ghana. I also have Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa, joining us via Zoom. Also, Abla Jifa Gumashi, MP for KT South, joins us. She's been singled out for praise as well. And Sami Jemfi, Communications Officer of the NDC, also joining us via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. You're welcome to The Probe. I'll have to test your microphones if you have to unmute so I can hear you. Welcome. Good evening. So,
thank you.
Yeah, I'm good with
Thank
Franklin.
you.
Franklin Kujo is good. Dr. Asasante.
Hello, good evening.
Okay. Ablago Mashi is also good. Welcome.
Hey.
Dr. Asasante.
Yeah, good evening, Emefa.
Okay, everyone is good. Thank you so much for joining us once again. It's only right that I start with Jifa Gumashi, MP for K2 South. I've seen that you're one of the first names that...
Good evening, Emefa.
Good evening. Welcome once again. I saw that you're one of the first that Fifi Kwete posted on his status for not betraying the cause. And I heard him talk about the fact that some mechanisms have been put in place in that interview with my colleague, Evans Mensah. Really, how did you prove your innocence? How did you show to the party that you did not vote a yes for any of the MPs?
Thank you very much, and good evening to my co-panelists and, of course, the listeners. Emefa, before I answer you, I want to, on my own behalf and on behalf of all of us, apologize to the NDC fraternity and also Ghanaians who were expecting us to do A and we did B. And now coming to your question, as the General Secretary said, he had put in some mechanisms to be able to confirm whether we fell in line or whether we did what the Ghanaian people were expecting us to do. And so I'll just say that it was out of conviction that I decided to follow the instruction of the party and also the wishes of my people in Katu South.
So I was wondering how you proved your innocence to Fifikwete or the party that you went according to what the party said you should do.
Emefa, you're asking me to put out in the public domain a company secret?
Because I'm just wondering, because a number of names have been put on his status. I've seen some also videoing or taking pictures of their vote, and it's public now. So I'm wondering if you did same. Is it the case that you were all asked to take photos of your vote and send to the party, or how exactly were you supposed to prove your innocence?
I will leave that to the party hierarchy to decide whether they want to make this a public thing or what they told us, either individually or collectively. But I am admitting that we were expected to show some kind of proof. But personally also, I had made a decision whether we were asked or not to keep some record of the sort for myself. Because as you recall, in the last election that happened in the chamber, we women were blamed for some underhand dealing, and it traumatized me. And so I had made up my mind that there shouldn't be any secret balloting. Whatever anytime I vote, I must keep a record.
Okay, well, but what could have gone wrong? I know you've been apologizing on behalf of your colleagues, for instance. It looks like there were marching orders given to all MPs on the minority side. You even had your chairman sitting right opposite all of you, ensuring that you abide by the directive or the marching orders that were given. What do you think could have gone wrong?
You know, from the experience I've had in the last 2 years, a lot of things go into the work of Parliament. And I've had calls to put on my Facebook page asking the question whether this democracy is not a scam. Because you see, you have in the chamber 275 grown men and women with their own minds, with their own convictions and beliefs, who have decided to come into Parliament on the ticket of a party. In one sense, that democracy makes you lose who you are because you have to, as the whip system we practice dictates, you have to fall in line. And so I realized that relationships, loyalty, or other things can change a person's wish to follow the directive. I'll be surprised if, for example, I ask you, Emefa, whether you believe in Jifa Bomashi and you support her to contest an election. I'll be surprised if you said no, right? Because you watched me over the years. I'm sure you believe that I'm capable of doing the work that I put myself up for. But if anybody told you that, don't support Jifa because that is the whip system, you will shake. It is what it is. This is what we have settled for. This democracy doesn't allow you to sometimes perhaps obey the whip system.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate. But I've made up my mind that I'm following the whip system. I'm a Jerry baby, you see.
Well, let's bring in Mr. Sammy Gyamfi. We are grateful once again. That's the communications officer of your party. So I'm curious about the mechanism that was put in place to prove the innocence of or otherwise of these MPs. In an instance, we had up to 31 MPs on the minority side, in spite of the marching orders. Really, I'm sure investigations are still underway. Preliminary findings, how does it look like?
Oh, a very good morning, good evening to my colleague panelists and viewers across the globe. However, I think the most important issue that those watching us this evening are interested in has to do with the stance of the party on the on what has happened in Parliament, the vote on the ministerial nominees. And as National Communications Officer of the party, I can tell you that the party is very disappointed. We've indicated that in an official press statement, which was signed by the General Secretary. We condemn in no uncertain terms the decision by some NDC members of Parliament to lend their support to the recklessness of the Akufo-Addo NPP government. Nothing can justify that betrayal. And as we indicated in that statement, and the former president, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, has indicated in a Facebook post, what it did is not only a betrayal of the rank and file of the party or the will of the party, but a betrayal of many Ghanaians who were looking up to them to put this wasteful and reckless Akufo-Addo government in check. But that notwithstanding, the NDC as a corporate body still maintains that the size of government is bloated. We maintain that President Akufo-Addo must show that he is sensitive to the current economic crisis Ghanaians find themselves in, and show by example that he's willing to cut down on expenditure by downsizing his government. We'll continue to make that call as a responsible opposition. It doesn't matter that a handful of members of parliament in our party who are completely out of touch with the mood of the country and the expectations of the people have chosen to do otherwise. The party's integrity remains intact, and we will continue to do our job as a responsible opposition.
On the party's integrity remaining intact, for instance, it appears that a number of people, because you have the opportunity or in Parliament, when it matters most, it appears that that did not happen. You did not do what Ghanaians wanted you to do. Do you feel that Ghanaians still feel that you are the most viable opposition when it comes to you doing what you say you would do? Because you gave marching orders, that was not followed.
Well, gauging public sentiments on what has happened in Parliament, it's very clear that many Ghanaians are disappointed in the party, because members of parliament are elected on the tickets of parties, or they stand independent. In this case, the 137, now 136 members of the minority caucus were elected on the ticket of the NDC. So what they do sometimes, has a certain collateral effect on the party. But I'm here as a spokesperson of the party to tell them that those members of parliament are on their own. It's like in company law, we have something we call ultra vires acts, when directors of a company choose to do things against the objects of the company. What the MPs have done was not sanctioned by the party. They did contrary to what they were advised by the party. And let me say, voluntarily agreed to do. Nobody imposed anything on them, because all of us understand that given the times we all find ourselves in, the opposition has a responsibility to put the government in check relative to its expenditure on its bloated sides. And so, yes, Emefa, you may be a parent with, say, 10 children. You can give an advice to your children not to take marijuana when they go to school. 10 may listen to you, 2 may decide to go contrary to your advice. It doesn't necessarily make you, the parent, a weed smoker. So, yes, they have gone contrary to the advice given to them by the NDC, the parents, in this context.
But you should have known. You should have known the children. You should have known the children that you have, because this is not the first time they've defied you. At least with the last one, we know about the Hawa Kumsin, Kojo Oponkroma, Ekokutuefiye vote also. It's the same thing that happened. And then,
if you have it, the fact that your child refuses
for some, this is a wrong call in the first place, because you know the children that you have. Why give them such a call?
You don't give up on your children. A parent must always continue to give guidance to his or her children, irrespective of whether or not they listen. You must.
So you remain, as a party, you remain confident in the MPs that you have in Parliament?
Not all of them. Not all of them. We are confident, at least in the 98 members of Parliament who stayed the course.
You know all of them? You know all 98? You know all 98?
We may not know all of them. It's impossible to know all of them, but we know some of them. Okay. And we salute them for their patriotism. What they did was not done for the NDC, they did it for Ghana. And especially the new leadership of the caucus, let me put it that way. We are very much confident in them. They did what was expected of them as leaders. And so Honorable Dr. Atoforsen, the whip, the deputy minority leader, all of them, they've done excellently well, and we are proud of them. As for the few who decided to allow their own personal parochial interest to override the collective interest of the party and the interest of the Ghanaian people, we leave them to their own conscience.
Do you have any suspicions? I'll leave you to think about that. I'll come back to you on because I've seen some names, and whether you have any suspicions in terms of those who went contrary to the marching orders. But Dr. Rashid Rahman, you have followed Parliament. Since we had a hung Parliament, you've had all kinds of expectations from the MPs in there, but you've seen happening so far. You're still confident that this hung Parliament is actually a blessing or a curse to us?
Yeah, Emefa, I think the hung Parliament is very much a blessing to our democracy. You know, the parties are having their ups and downs. Let's maybe compare January 6th, the morning of January, the night of January 6th to the morning of January 7th. The NDC was celebrating when some members of the MPP caucus joined them to produce what we have as the current speaker now. What is different with what happened on Friday? Because we were saying at the time that we salute those MPs who defied the orders of their party to vote their conscience. And I think that's the same thing that is being played out right now. And for me, I think you asked the communication officer the question about the kind of pattern that we are seeing. We saw that during the first vetting and appointment of ministers and so on, and we have seen that now. For me, I think the message that this sends clearly is that the party and the caucus is not very much in sync. Look, when a government is in power, there are two ways of holding the government, two ways of assessing the performance of the government that is in power. That is the performance of the executive, the president and his ministers, and the performance of the caucus in parliament. But when a party is in opposition, I think the only way that citizens, in this case, Ghanaians with NDC, the only way to assess the performance of the NDC is not what happens where the communication officer sits and where the general secretary and the party chairman sit. It is what happens where the 36 members of parliament sit. So that's why it's important that we see the performance of those 136 MPs as a barometer for whether they can be trusted to be the next government or not. And so it is very important, I think, in my view, for there to be, a show of unity between the party and the caucus.
Okay.
I mean, you can say anything that you want. At the end of the day, I mean, Ghanaians are disappointed by the action of the 136 caucus in Parliament, not by what is happening at the NDC headquarters. So that is why I think is very, very important that in this hung Parliament, we want to see more and more some level of unity between the party and the caucus. Emefa, in parliamentary research that we do, there is an age-old kind of theory, which, the jury is out there. It says that, it questions whether an MP is a trustee with independence or a delegate with a mandate. What it means is that if you are a delegate with a mandate, each time you have to decide, before the Right Honourable Speaker puts a question, you go back to those who send you to Parliament to say, oh, how should I vote, and so on and so forth. But most people reject that. They say the MP is a trustee with some level of independence. So at the end of the day, I think we want to see the party do all the things that it wants to do behind the scenes and then leave the internal system. Because otherwise, you are going to have people who defy you and say, look, we are going to defy this instruction. The two parties, over the last couple of months, we've seen when the rebels in the MPP came up, we saw directives issued by the party head office. What did it do? I don't think that it changed the minds of those MPs. It rather even emboldened them. The NDC came up with this directive, and this is the outcome that we have seen. So I think the parties, should learn some lessons about these happenings and make sure that they put their house in order. We make sure that we have, many people have said most of these are parties, the two major parties don't have internal democracy. How are decisions made? We saw in the last, in the reshuffle that happened, we saw the rebellion that we had within the ranks of the NDC. Many of the caucus members came out and spoke and said, we are unhappy, we were not consulted. This directive that was issued, was the caucus consulted? How was the consultation done? Was it democratic? You can say all the things that you want to say, that members, MPs go to Parliament on the ticket of a party and so on. But like your first speaker said, there are so many other considerations. Some of the members of their caucus have family relations with some of the ministers. There are religious relationships.
But we are at a point where Ghanaians say we should reduce size of government.
No, indeed.
That's where we are all going.
Yes, that's where we are all going. And so the point is that in order for the NDC to be cocksure that, all our 136 members were going to vote the way we wanted, I would have thought that some lessons would have been learned. I would have thought that some work would have been done to ensure a very tight, united front.
Okay.
So that they go in there and project an image that they are a government in waiting that we can trust as Ghanaians.
Okay.
But right now, I think their brand is damaged. They have a lot of work to do.
Let me go back to Zoom, and I still have Franklin Kujo. For him, he thinks that 2024 is slipping away from the NDC. I'll take your thoughts on that, so you give me further details on that. But Dr. Asante is a political watcher, looking at all that is happening. What's your own interpretation of what you've seen so far in Parliament, Dr. Asante?
Yeah, Emefa, thank you, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Very interesting. I must say that I'm highly disappointed in NDC, caucus in Parliament. They failed this country big time. Even though I know that when you are operating a system like that, there is always the tendency for MPs to go against the party's position. But one would have thought that given the importance of the issue under consideration, that is for the government to reduce its size, we were hopeful that the party, and giving individual members of parliament the things they said about the size of government over and over, and then when the real time came, they left us in this manner. For me, it brings a lot of things to the fore. One, trust issue. As I sit here, I don't trust them one bit. Right. So is the NDC MPP majority in parliament. We've seen them in a number of issues. Let me start with the NDC. All right. We were in this country when minority leader Mr. Haruna Idisu said that the party was going to make sure that the VAT will be thrown away and that they are not going to accept that. During the voting, one person was disappeared, and the rest of the story, we know it too well for me to recount it here. I have also listened to the former minority leader in one of the programs in Accra, where he did say that they have never been, they have left the government, given the government that leeway that they have not been able to exercise their, regulatory role over the executive, very much so. That is a disappointment, because we put them there to, as it were, to be our representative. Members of parliament represent our interests, our opinions, and aspirations. So they don't go there and then champion their cause. What did we see here? They left us. Now, all the talk that they make in parliament, for me, anytime they speak like that, and forcefully, I will take it with a pinch of salt, because when it matters more, I know they will leave us down. But let me move on to the second issue. I'm also not surprised, because if you look at the system of government that we are practicing, the hybrid system, it's, a fusion of both parliamentary and presidential. And under parliamentary system of government, we have what we call a strict party discipline, where because of a vote of no confidence that exists in that system of government, if a party doesn't listen, members of parliament do not listen to their party, and they want to go and vote anyhow, they will have a collective damage of losing power as, opposition leader begin to what? Filing a motion of what? Vote of no confidence to remove the government. So you dare not. But when you have a hybrid, such as ours, what we are seeing over the years, it means that the presidential bit is what you see here at play, where there is a weak party discipline. Now the party can issue instruction and people can, do otherwise, simply because there is a fixed tenure of office for the government, for which reason you cannot remove the president from office unless he crosses the line through impeachment and all that. So they are safe to be in parliament, and they can decide to do something against the interest of the party. But you see, in politics, the interest of the people is paramount. That yes, you have your individual interest. If you look at some of them have friends and family relations and all that, we agree. But the collective interest of Ghanaians is what matters most, for which reason we put MPs there. So if they go there and decide that they will carry their interests forward and then leave us behind, I'm afraid, we cannot say much, but that we have taken political notice of what they have done. And that when the time comes for us to renew their mandates, that's the time we also tell them what we think. But back to the issue of,
But just before you go in there, Dr. Asante, it appears that we are actually being unnecessarily hard on the minority, holding them to a higher standard, when in fact there's a government that we elected that we should be holding accountable. Really, is that not the case?
But it takes the two, the minority and the general public to ensure that government does the needful, all right? So they have a bigger responsibility as our representatives in parliament. Remember that we are operating a representative democracy, that all the 32 million Ghanaians cannot be in parliament, but that we have selected them to go and represent us. So it is incumbent upon them to do a lot of things that we want them to do. And that is not to say that we also as a society, we have checked our responsibilities. Civil society, individuals, and what we are doing is part of the process. But they in parliament, I cannot go there and vote. And so is the case when you also go to parliament, you can vote. But they, when it matters most, we expect them to do the needful. What they have done so far, all right, for me, they have really caused pain to the Ghanaian society. And some of these things translate into voting. All right? I'm not surprised that people have started commending those who told the lines of the party. I don't know how they were able to get those who really followed the party directives. The only thing would be that we ask them to take photos and whatnot, which is an aberration. And when you look at the rules regarding secret ballot and the rest of them, but that issue is another that we can look at another time. But all that I want to say that I'm highly disappointed, because if you have opposition that is supposed to hold government accountable for its actions and inactions, and at the 11th hour, it can, disappoint you like that, then where is the hope? For me, now, if you look at the bigger picture of what this hang parliament, as to whether it's a blessing or a curse, it is a blessing. But the issue is, will our MPs be able to stand for us when it matters most?
Okay, let me bring in
where the question is.
Let me bring in Mr. Kujo. Mr. Kujo, so I saw your post immediately after that vote, and at the end of it, for you, 2024 may be slipping away from the NDC. How bad can what happened on Friday into Saturday hit the NDC in an upcoming election for you?
Well, maybe that was an advocacy point I was actually trying to make, because as you see, in a representative democracy, clearly speaking, especially the kinds of democratic practice we have in this part of our world, you can only hope that the representatives in parliament, the opposing side, will do the needful, because some of us can shout, and indeed we've been shouting, we've been saying all the right things, and we never really get to be listened to. So the last defense, the last form of defense, is the representatives in parliament, and they have all the arsenal, they have all the research, they have all the arguments that have been canvassed by civil society actors and indeed ordinary Ghanaians. And so this particular issue was quite a thorny one. It was a very important matter, especially because we've been saying time without number that the kind of administration we are running, the type of government systems we are running, can no longer be sustained, and our finances can no longer cater to the needs of these ever-bloating, debt-reading type of governance system that we have adopted for ourselves. So the least we expected was some form of representation that would send signals to the government, especially the president, that it's no longer rhetoric, that the concerns of the Ghanaians express about the size of government, it's no longer funny, essentially, and that there are some serious persons who think that these matters must be treated with all the necessary attention and the urgency with which it must be attended with all the necessary attention and urgency. So I was really, really surprised and quite disappointed at the same time that this actually happened. But let me just say that maybe on hindsight, the strategy the caucus should have adopted, and maybe the party should have adopted, should have been a boycott, because then we would not have anybody sitting in parliament, because you will not be seated there in any case to vote anyway, right? And that would have been much louder, and then would have saved ourselves this witch hunting and name calling that is actually going on right now. This sounds more like Gestapo at work, where people are now trying to fish out people who must have voted one way or the other. I'm sure strategy-wise, I think it was a big mistake, especially when previous appointments have been, the similar situations have occurred with previous appointments. In a hung parliament, the opposition essentially would have the powers of, blockade in terms of the financial plans or programs of the government, call for a proper review, or just review, make sure that the people that the president brings as ministers are properly vetted. And of course, the power of censure. I know the opposition has exercised the power of censure once, they were not successful. But on appointment, I don't think they've been quite successful at all. And on this particular one, I thought the strategy should have been a boycott rather than, asking people to vote secretly. And I do not really buy this whole argument about personal relationships that have been built, religious affiliations, tribal connections. It's actually quite frankly silly because you see, we are trying to build for ourselves a country and a democracy that is devoid of conflict of interest. How do we cite the president for conflict of interest in one instance in the appointment of his relatives, and then the fact that because of personal relationships, tribal affiliations, and indeed religious connections, some people decide that they will vote for persons they work with simply because, that should be the order of the day. There's a much larger issue to be discussed. The fiscal situation of this country is no longer funny, and I think we've given the president enough room, and I think we've given him an escape route once more, because we've not been able to bite as we should have.
Well, Mr. Sami Jemfi, I asked you earlier, but you mentioned that that's not the most important thing that people are looking out for. But really, did you ask your MPs on your side to actually take photos or videos of their votes as proof of innocence? Is that one of the mechanisms that the party put in place?
None that I'm aware of. But Emefa, let me clarify a few things, because some of the things Dr. Brahmani said are not very accurate. First of all, he asked questions about whether or not there was consultations with the caucus before the party issued the directive we are discussing and so on. The answer is yes. There was not just consultations, but the suggestion for the party to go public with such a directive emanated from the caucus leadership.
It did.
I can tell you that, and I want to put that on public record, because I've heard a lot of people make comments based on the fact that they don't have the full picture. You understand? How many in Parliament our MPs are called upon to take decisions on a daily basis? How many times have you seen the mainstream party meddle or interfere in their work as parliamentarians by issuing directives? The party hardly does that. But on this occasion, the leadership made the suggestion that a formal position on that communicated publicly was important, because the issue of the size of government and the need for expenditure cuts is an issue of considerable public interest that a responsible opposition cannot be indifferent or passive about. And so that is why, in discussing that proposal, the party decided to take this decision. And in any case, it was not an imposition. There was a meeting with the entire caucus. The issues were discussed dispassionately. I can tell you that representatives of the Council of Elders were there. I can tell you that the very top leadership of the party were there, and other higher ups that I wouldn't want to, mention. None of the members of parliament disagreed with the suggestion of their leadership and the party. None of them raised any issues. And so let's not make excuses for the few members of parliament who have elected to become accomplices to the recklessness of President Akufo-Addo. That's number one. Number two, there is no parallel between what happened in the case of the election of the Speaker of Parliament and this particular matter, the vote on the ministerial nominees.
What's the difference?
The vote for speakership, what was the public interest in that matter? It had nothing to do with issues that affected the economy, affected living conditions of people.
But you benefited from a person
No, but I'm saying that
from a betrayal, like you've described it, a treacherousness
but you see,
amongst
what
others.
we
You
are
benefited
discussing,
from it back then,
no, what
did
we
you
are
not?
discussing is not just a betrayal of a party decision. Let's get it correct. It's not a betrayal of a party decision. It's a betrayal of the pervasive sentiments of the people.
Okay.
In this country, civil society, religious bodies, everybody is calling on government to downsize, including the members of parliament themselves. You understand?
Okay.
Are we saying that for the fun of it? Are we saying that because of partisanship? No. We are saying so because we believe that it is in the best interest of Ghana, our nation, for us to run a smaller size of government and make savings which can be put into the productive sectors of the economy and in areas that benefits the people. And so if you betray a position that you were part of, okay, its formulation on this matter, you have not just defied a party directive, you have betrayed the people of this country, including your constituents. Finally, I disagree again with Dr. Dramani when he says that the only way, and the emphasis is on what he said, the only way to assess the performance of a party in position is by assessing the performance of its caucus in parliament. I totally disagree with that. I don't know where that is coming from. As assessing a political party, yes, will involve the assessment of the performance of various wings, arms, officials of that political party. So yes.
But is your caucus in parliament not the most important in the scheme of affairs? Because you put
It's
this particular burden on them.
No, it's not the most important.
To deliver for you.
Don't confuse the caucus in parliament with the party. They are
Can the party vote in parliament? You cannot. Can you take key decisions?
But we have a voice. It's not just about voting.
Okay.
It's not just about voting.
Can you take key decisions?
The party has a voice. The party has structures. We have elected officers, appointed officers. You understand?
Okay.
We gave birth to the parliamentary caucus. So it cannot be that you will say that the child, in this case, now has supremacy and preeminence over the party itself.
Okay.
And so if a few of them, even in parliament, not all of them, we have 136 members of parliament who were present there, NDC MPs. You had about 98 of them staying true to the cause of the nation.
So quickly, I know that this is an issue that we'll be discussing the whole week, but let me find out quickly from you, Mr. Jemfi, let me find out quickly from you. You still have confidence in the leadership, the current leadership of the caucus in parliament as we speak, because there are those who think that that abrupt change that you made, the divisiveness that it created, is now coming back to bite the party hard.
That's got nothing to do with their performance. We are saying we have confidence in their performance as leaders of the caucus because they have proven to be faithful, trustworthy, and committed to the cause of the party.
Okay. Well, so how are you fishing out those who broke ranks with the party, those who betrayed?
That's not meant for the consumption of the public. But it's very.
What will happen? What will happen to them once you fish them out? What will happen once you fish them out?
I mean, members of parliament, they communicate, right? They have friends. And the party has its ears on the ground. We have our eyes on the ground as well. And so if the party picks up any intel that MPA was used as a conduit to compromise his or her colleagues, the party can investigate that. We don't have to come and announce that on television already.
Is that what happened? Is that what happened? We had some MPs who were used.
I was just giving you an example.
Okay.
The party can investigate that, see if there is any corroborative evidence, query members of parliament, like we query executives when they act against the will and the position of the party. The party can do that, but these are not things that you want to discuss in the public domain. The most important thing is that the party still believes that government must downsize and cut down on the needless expenditures, which is what majority of Ghanaians are looking for.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Jemfi. It looks like that's all time will allow us on that. But let me bring in Jifa Gomashi as well, just so that we can be wrapping up on this. But I want to find out from you, was there a camp infiltration of a sort? And going forward, how are you hoping that the party would deal with this such that we'll not have this recurring? Hello, Jiva. You have to unmute. Can you hear me, Jiva?
Emefa?
Yes, we can hear you now.
What
We just
for
froze.
me is missing in this conversation is why nobody's asking, why nobody from the other side does not have this of people that it has given appointments to. Why is that not in the equation of the conversation?
Sorry, we lost you at the beginning of the comment you were making.
All of them on the other side should vote for the increase in the numbers. It looks to me as if the yardstick with which we are measured in NDC is different from what you use in measuring the MPP. And I think that is unfair. So far, everybody's conversation is what we NDC has done and has not done right. I agree that it's wrong that we let the people of Ghana down by not rejecting the appointees. But why are we not questioning why? What kind of system is this that those who are in the wrong are always left alone and we are beaten to pulp all the time? And anyway, in any case, I'm hoping that my colleagues and I have learned a serious lesson, and going forward, that we carry the
Unfortunately, we keep losing you along the line, but I think that she's made the point, but I was hoping to hear whether there was a camp infiltration and what actually happened. Quickly, did you hear me? Because you froze along the line. You were saying that why are we not blaming the majority side? What did they do?
Why are you not using the same yardstick? Ghana says you throughout this conversation, you are all saying that the people want the government to downsize the number of people that it has appointed. Mm-hmm. It is the responsibility of all 275 of us to ensure that government does right and listens to the people of Ghana. It shouldn't be just the NDC listening to the people of Ghana.
That's true.
Were they also not voted for by the same people of Ghana?
Okay. But Dr. Draman, Dr. Asasante, Franklin Kujo, so you've all heard, at least they were rebels at some point. They should have also rejected it. Maybe a minute each, we can go around on that.
Yes, I think for me, I want to raise, because my interest is, a strong parliament. Mm-hmm. That's all I've been doing all these years. So, it doesn't matter whether we are talking NDC or MPP. I'm just looking at parliamentary procedure and how we can strengthen the workings of parliament to have a very strong parliament. My question is, look, maybe picking up on what Honorable Jifa has said, might it be the case that there were some MPP MPs who also voted against, because they mixed the ballots. Mm-hmm. So we don't know how people voted. So it is unfair, for instance, to say 31 MPs from the NDC side voted with the MPP. Okay. There are rebels in the NPP as well.
You had 135 on that side and 136 here. So
yes, but
taking it out and doing the
yes, we are just...
Anyway, they were rejected ballots as well.
And then we are just doing a simple kind of, assuming that the MPP voted in block, in one block. Okay. No. The ballots were mixed when they were being counted on the orders of the Right Honourable Speaker. Mm-hmm. So we don't know how MPP voted and we don't know how NDC voted. Granted, I think there were some NDC MPs who voted with the MPP, but it could also be possible that there were MPP MPs who voted against their own people.
Okay.
That's the first thing, the first point I want to make. The second one, MFI, is that I think in a hung parliament, we have to manage expectations very carefully. You are not too strong, you are not also too weak. There are certain things that you can do and there are certain things that you cannot do. And so I think for me, the parties have to go back to what we've been calling for right on day one. Consensus building, trying to work together, because we have imposed on them a kind of system where we are telling them that go and work together, go and find a way to live with each other. Contrary to what they've been used to over the past 20-something years, okay, where they have the convenience of a majority at one point, the NDC or the MPP. Now we are giving them the inconvenience of saying, go and find a way to work together. And I think that they are finding it very difficult. That is both the NDC and the MPP to accept, okay, And I think until we get to that point, you know, the surprises are going to keep coming.
Oh, it could get worse than this.
It could get worse. And I can tell you that we could wake up in the next parliament and see one party in the Jubilee House and another party in parliament. And that's what's going to make our democracy more interesting.
Dr. Asante, how would they gain your trust in a minute, under a minute?
It will take them a while for them to gain my trust, simply because I'm following them and consistently they've disappointed me. But I have no alternative than they being opposition who hold government to account for its actions and inactions. It's my hope and prayer that next time when an issue crops up like this, they will do the needful and then vote in the interest of Ghanaians. If they want to consider their individual, interest, they will get it wrong. Let them remember that when it comes to voting, when we want to renew their mandate or throw them away, they should know that we have the power to do so. Now you can disappoint me, but when it comes to election, I'll vote you out. For me, that is the message that I want to send to them, that there is a day of accountability, and that day, the day for the voter.
Franklin, I'll give you the final word.
Well, certainly, when Parliament is useful, it's beneficial to the people. I think in this instance, the onus actually lies or laid essentially on the minority side. Because it was a numbers game, and I think they should have exercised that opportunity. And let me just say that, scientifically, I've been asking myself, since those posts were vacated, that they were to be filled, I don't think there's been any particularly useful addition to the Ghanaian economy by the fact that those positions were vacant, right? I mean, apart from salaries that were saved, I don't think there's been any particularly useful addition to the Ghanaian economy. The reasons for which they should have been either realigned or completely abandoned, like the chieftaincy ministry.
Okay. Thank you so much, Franklin Kujo, President, Imani Africa. I've also had in the studio Dr. Rashid Rahman, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Also, Dr. Asante, Political Scientist, University of Ghana. Also have Abla Jifagomashi, MP Ketu South, and Sami Jemfi, Communications Officer of the NDC, joining us for tonight's edition of The Probe. Many thanks. I know that the whole week we'll be dominating discussions and we'll have you again. Thank you so much. This has been The Probe, live on the Joy News channel, Joy 99.7 FM. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Many thanks, Blessed Suga.
Thank you, Emefa.
For sitting in. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. I am Emefa Apawu.